Hi, everyone. It's Steve Politi from NJ Advanced Media. This week's Rutgers Rant is brought to you by the New Brunswick Development Corporation. A big thank you to our sponsor and to all of our listeners for the continued support. Now let's get to the show.
NFL Sunday Ticket is now on YouTube and YouTube TV, which means that it just got easier to be an NFL fan, even if you live far away. Like maybe you like the Bears, but you're hibernating in Panthers territory. But with NFL Sunday Ticket, your out-of-market team is never more than a short distance away. Specifically, the distance from you to your remote control. NFL Sunday Ticket, now on YouTube and YouTube TV. Go to youtube.com/presale to get $50 off.
Terms and embargoes apply. Offer ends 9/19. No refund. Subscription auto renews.
From NJ.com and the Star Ledger, welcome to the Rutgers Rant, your one-stop podcast for the Scarlet Knights, with your hosts Steve Politi and Rutgers insiders Brian Fonseca and Pat Lenny. Let's start shopping.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Rant, sponsored by Devco. Politi here. Lanny, Fonseca, we're all here. And look, all right, so we're midway through camp here, further than midway through camp. We're about 2/3 of the way through camp. I got to take the gloves off. We got to bring some heat. You guys got to get ready for the season. So I'm just going to I'm going to start by throwing this hand grenade here in the middle of the room. All right. Second scrimmage. It's the same conclusion as the first scrimmage. When a head coach says the defense is ahead of the offense, I hear something else. I hear the quarterback isn't good enough. So what can you guys tell me now? Is my conclusion about Gavin Wimsatt wrong? Should fans not be concerned when they're seeing these sort of coded messages about where this offense is? Go ahead. You guys are there. You saw the entire scrimmage. You've seen more practice than anybody. Tell me, am I wrong? Am I wrong to be worried about Gavin Wimsatt and this offense?
I would say the way that the third wrinkle on Greg Schiano's forehead looked during his press conference would make me very worried about Gavin Wimsatt's performance. No, I mean, there's a lot of context here too, right? Like, it's not Gavin Wimsatt against the world.
This is true.
The offensive line is still, Greg said, that it's still not settled. The starting five, they're still figuring out wide receiver. The defense is a more established unit, so I wouldn't read too deep into the defense is ahead of the offense, because isn't the defensive head of the offense in every training camp across America at every level?
Yep. And the defense is good. Defense is very good too. Keep that in mind.
That being said, I'm not saying that Gavin Wimsatt has been a world beater, right? I think we have said on most pods now that it can't get much worse, right? He's not going to be worse than 44% completion percentage, I would assume. I wouldn't expect that number to get much higher, but I would not put that entirely on his shoulders. And I think that it's not time to hit the panic button just yet, because you can only glean so much from these scrimmages anyway. I think the big test will be Northwestern, obviously. But to answer your question, no, I don't know if you agree with me, Pat, but I think the panic button is a little too early to hit that right now.
I agree, and I want the fans to understand that what Rutgers wants to do is make Gavin Wimsatt a system quarterback, to understand the system, to master the system, and take what Shiraka is giving him and just learn and execute that system. We know what Shiraka's system is. It's going to be ball control. It's going to be RPO. They're going to let Gavin run a little bit. I think fans can expect that. I think the key to Gavin Wimsatt's season is going to be moving the chains on 3rd and 5. Can he make those 3rd and 5 passes? Mm-hmm. And can he keep the ball moving and possess the ball? That's the key.
Right.
He doesn't need to complete 60-70% of his throws. He needs to be 55, but good enough to just keep the ball and let the defense win games. That's it.
Yeah. And not throwing the ball to the other team. And by all accounts, he has really cleaned up the turn. He's not making the bad decisions. He's not putting the ball on the ground. We haven't that seems to be the one area that they're very confident about him playing that way. That would be a huge improvement if Rutgers needs to win the turnover battle to have a better season. Clearly, that's got to be a big part of it.
Absolutely. And to your point, yes, it's been in the first scrimmage. He did not have any turnovers. It did not seem to be a big issue in the second scrimmage either. So if his accuracy is not very much improved, the better alternative is that he's throwing the ball away and out of bounds or missing his target, but not throwing it to the opposing team, like you said. And to latch onto something that Pat said about Gavin running, I think he flashed that part of his game early on last season, got dinged up and wasn't really able to do that towards the latter half of the year, but he showed an ability to do that. And given that he's healthy now and given that, that could be part of the offense, I think that could be an area where he could help himself even, right? So maybe his accuracy isn't up to 60, 70%, but you could use his legs to help himself in certain situations too. So I think, look, we've said this and it's hyperbolic. I don't think he's going to be in the running for the Heisman. I have to think he'll be a little bit better than last year.
I think that's really fair. And I think he's just going to take the step that a sophomore would take. I don't think he's going to be I don't want to talk about the pipeline, Greg's pipeline of guys coming out the other end or developing, but I think he will take a developmental step this year and be better, and the offense is better suited for him. I think with Gleason, they wanted to spread the team out and let him throw it all over the place, and that was just wrong. Then Nunzio came in and they simplified it a little bit to a run first offense, and that helped a little bit. And I think now you're going to see a lot of the RPO stuff, and that really fits his game really well because he can run the ball. And as long as he makes those right decisions and right reads on the linebackers and defensive ends, he's going to have a significantly better season.
All right. That's a great point. You mentioned the coaching staff, and I know you had an exclusive interview with the offensive coordinator today, Pat. Very exciting. Kirk Shiraka. We will read all about that. And I like the fact that Greg Schiano, an improvement access wise, is making the assistants available. I talked to Marquise Watson today. He's just a really good interview. It's just like a dynamic dude. You can tell. You talk to him for 5 minutes and you know why recruits want to come to play for him. He just connects with young people. I'm doing a feature on Aaron Lewis, which will come later in the week as a sneak preview. And he was great about that. So I was at practice today, 3 observations. One, and that is the first one, that this staff Greg's really comfortable. Greg Schiano's really comfortable with the coaching staff. Number one. Number two, there's some big dudes like Isaiah Eaton. My goodness. I was just talking this. I had a conversation with someone. I looked over my shoulder and said, "Holy crap!" And there was no number. He wasn't wearing a shirt. I'm like, "Who is that?" Like, the first time I've done that at a Rutgers football practice, and I'll do that at Giants. You'll do that at professional. That's just a dude who looks like he was reason why he was in the SEC. Observation number two: there's big people. There seemed like there's less speed on defense too. I think that's an encouraging thing. Like if you're sitting here and we started this podcast with worrying about the offense and understandable concerns there, you've got to be going into this season feeling pretty good about the other side of the ball.
100%. Yeah. And there's more depth too, which was their biggest issue last year, why things really faded in the second half of games and why they couldn't make the big stops when they needed to. But I think defensive line is such a deep unit. Linebackers, you got all those guys, Tyreen Powell and Deion Jennings, a year of experience. And then with Moses Toure and Moses Walker and Mo Toure back, it's going to be, you got depth there too. So at all 3 levels of the defense, you're excited about it. And I think you can't not be excited about it.
Right. Yeah. And Max Melton is a pro. He's a pro defensive back, and keep going. Flip Dixon, expect big things from him. There's a lot going on that side of the ball. So that's the one encouraging thing. All right, Fonseca, this is the funny part. This is going to describe your Saturday. So you watched the scrimmage was like 16 hours long from what I understand. Roughly. Like it started at 9 a.m. and it ended sometime, from what I understand, a long scrimmage. I think we're allowed to say that. Lots of work being done, which is good, mid-August. So you left the scrimmage and you took a train to Harlem.
Yes. So to give an idea of how long the scrimmage is, it started at 10. I watched 3 hours of it. I left because I had to catch my train. I got on a New Jersey Transit train, went to New York Penn Station, got out of my train, and I got a text from Pat that says, "We're still going."
That's amazing.
So I got to get into Manhattan, and there's still a scrimmage going. And then I lost contact when I got on the D train to Harlem. I got on the D train. I met up with Rutgers basketball superfan and Knights of the Raritan board member Danny Breslauer.
Wow.
We took the last leg of the train together.
Yeah.
We got to Harlem. We got to Rucker Park at roughly 3:20, and there's a line wrapped around the block already to get in. And it's just mayhem from the start. And I'm a media member, obviously, so I go to the media entrance around back. They made us walk around.
There's a media entrance, though. That's good.
It was
That's
a media
good,
entrance. It was
all
labeled. It was all the way around back, so I had to walk around the entire park to get to the back.
Yeah.
There's a nice little contingent back there. This is 3:30. The doors open at 4. I was on that line until 4:45 before the line started moving. When family and friends got to get in, and the VIPs got in, and then the media gets in, and it's a whole. It was a mess. It was.
Are there bleachers at Rucker Park? Like their sitting area? Where did everybody go to watch this thing?
So to the best of my understanding, there was a bleacher on one side that was for family and friends and VIPs and people who know the players. There were the courtside seats on either end for the real VIPs. Quavo was there. The Harper was there. Yes, Quavo was there, who famously played a private concert for Chris Ash's football team in 2017.
That's why I know who Quavo is. That's like that name sounds familiar. There you go.
He's the leader of Migos. So he was there, and the Harpers were there. So they were on the court side here. Then and then on the other side, there's the bleachers with the general public. I was apparently there were 300 people allowed in. That was the limit of, so we're pretty small attendance. And I met a group of Rutgers fans that got there at 3:00 ish because they wanted to go in and watch the Zieglers. They were quoted in my story, and they told me later that they didn't get in. They got there an hour before doors open, and they got cut off before they can get in.
Are you serious?
They had to go back home. That's how tight the attendance was, and that's how high the demand was to get in to watch. 14 of the best high school basketball players in the country, 2 of which are Rutgers adjacent in that there's a commit in Ace Bailey and there's a top target in Dylan Harper. So think of that. Right. 2 of the 14 players there, Rutgers fans could go out and maybe see them play at the rack in 2 years' time. Pretty crazy.
I love your story because it was, I guess Rutgers was, the announcer was playing with the fans too a little bit. This could be a preview, like he was dropping Rutgers all the time, which is, pretty amazing.
He was loving it. When Ron Harper Jr. walked in, he said, "Ron Harper Jr.'s here. Rutgers in the house." And then when Ace Bailey would make a play, he would say, "Rutgers got one. Rutgers stole one." And then he throws in one. If they get Harper too, it'll be nasty and all this great. I thought the crowd was a bit milder than I anticipated. I thought there'd be a lot of whoos and ha's, and there really only was that for the occasional big dunk and when Cooper Flagg hit a game-tying 3 at the end. But it was cool. It was a cool atmosphere, and the announcer really did ham up the Rutgers thing for sure.
So I watched a lot of highlights of this game. It'll just the clips, and I'm sure I'm doing what a lot of Rutgers fans are doing when they do this. Like, I don't think we have adequately expressed how freakishly good Ace Bailey is at the basketball. And I get it. Like, of course, he's the 3rd best player in the country, dummy. Like we kind of get that he's good, but Rutgers has never had a player like that. Like, forget whatever Dylan Harper does. It's like you cannot get that kid's signature on a sheet of paper fast enough. He's just take the dunks out of the equation. He pulled up for a 3. There's one clip of him pulling up for a 3. He looks like KD. Right? It looks like Kevin Durant. Yeah. Right. It's just, am I overdoing it? You've seen him in person.
No, that 3 happened right in front of me. And it was over Cooper Flagg, who's the top player in their class. And he looked so smooth, dribbling the ball down the court and just pulling up for that 3. And again, the caveat here is that they played a level of defense that might give Steve Pikiell a coronary if he was sitting courtside. So that's they're having free dunks and every play was transition. So it's about as real basketball as you'll see, with me and my friends at the park. But that being said, just watching them go, the way Ace Bailey would go up for a dunk and his the rim would be below his neck, just how tall he is, how athletic he is, how long he is, how smooth his game is, how confident he looks, just how well he fit in with this star-studded cast of players. And he really stood out for, I think the MC at the place said it, and I agree with him that if Cooper Flagg, doesn't hit that 3, I probably would give Ace the MVP just because of how well he played. And I think Ace suffers from a similar deal that Gavin Griffiths does, because Gavin Griffiths 5 years ago signs with this program. He is seen as the savior and the humongous recruiting win, which he is. But then Ace Bailey comes along and commits in January. And then he's celebrated as this huge program savior, the next step. And now he's getting kind of overshadowed because Dylan Harper might commit to Rutgers. So Rutgers is getting so many recruiting wins, or potential recruiting wins if Harper does end up committing, that they're all kind of getting lost in the shuffle. And I think to that end, I agree with you that what Ace Bailey could bring to this program, if he signs and joins the program, is monumental. Rutgers might have a one and done NBA player on their roster in a couple of years, which is insane.
Pat, what level of fear, as a Rutgers, as a Rutgers observer, Rutgers graduate, what level of fear do you have knowing that you still got 3 months till that signature's on the dotted line? Do you have any at all?
It's the ultimate "are you screw?" I mean, come on.
He hasn't wavered at all, but I mean, are you worried? Should Rutgers fans
until the ink hits the paper, you got to have something in the back of your mind, I would say.
All right, so I'm going to do something that you guys aren't expecting. I'm bringing back true or false.
Oh yeah, let's go.
So you ready? Talk about putting you in to get you ready. These are 2-a-days, dead of summer here, 2 weeks to the season. You got to get ready for some true or false. So let's do it. All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
You ready?
Yes.
Okay. True or false? Number 1. Calm down. Dylan Harper is coming to Rutgers. Brian, true or false?
True.
True. Lanny?
We're gonna go false, so we talk about it.
Oh, wow. Okay. I feel pretty darn good he's coming, so I'll say true. I look forward to that at the end. All right. True or false? The breakout player for the Scarlet Knights on offense this season will be Ian Strong. True or false? Fonseca.
As a person who wrote the story about Ian Strong, I will say true.
Lanny?
I think it's going to be one of the transfer receivers, so false.
False. There you go. Okay. I'll go false too, just because I can. All right. True or false? The breakout player for the Scarlet Knights on defense this season will be Flip Dixon, Minnesota transfer. What we got? True or false? Brian?
I'll go false. Either Eric Rogers at cornerback or Isaiah Ayton.
Oh, well, that's a good one. Okay. Lanny?
I'm going to go false and go with safety Shaquan Loyal.
Wow.
Filling the Izzian role.
Right. Well, he was pretty good last year, so I don't know if that counts as a breakout, but I'll give it to you anyway.
True.
True or false? Rutgers Northwestern will be a sellout. Fonseca. True or false?
Announced?
No, I knew you were going to go there.
I'll go true.
True.
Reality?
Okay.
False.
Mm-hmm. All right. I mean, Northwestern doesn't travel, so no one's buying tickets for that crap show. Lanny, true or false?
Labor Day weekend.
Sunday, noon.
I don't know. A lot of people still down the shore.
Yep.
What's the biggest show in town? The Shore or Rutgers Northwestern?
Don't know. True or false? True answer.
I'm going to say true because I think it's trending that way.
Yeah, they'll announce it. True. All right. True or false? New kicker, new punter. We should be more worried about special teams. Fonseca, true or false?
False, because you shouldn't be worried about special teams at all. If you're losing sleep over special teams, you're worrying a little too much.
All right. What? Okay. Lanny, true or false? I don't know. Could be a lot of close games.
I'm going to say true.
Yeah.
And I thought Fonseca, the guy who has been Mr. Special Teams every podcast, is what?
And you had an exclusive. I'm going to interrupt the true or false because you had an exclusive today with the new kicker. Exclusive. I saw you talking to him.
I did. It was not exclusive. There were other outlets with me, but I did.
At the end, though, you pulled them aside. You had more to ask at the end of that interview.
I did.
Okay.
And that story will be out at some point this week. Okay. But I think that, yes, it's going to be weird for Rutgers fans to not have Adam Korsak, who is undoubtedly the greatest punter in program history. I just cannot imagine the drop-off will be that significant. And as for kicker, as we've detailed, Jude McAdamy, good leg, but did have some accuracy issues in medium range kicks. So I think that it can't, much like quarterback, can't be worse. And I think Jay Patel has shown that he can hit those with more frequency. So I think it'll maybe even be an upgrade at those positions.
All right, then 3 more. True or false? The September game that should concern the fans most. Virginia Tech. Brian, true or false?
True.
Pat?
True.
Really? All right. Okay. True or false? The September game that should concern fans the most. Northwestern. Well, gosh, I said false to Virginia Tech. I'll say true to this one because it's a Big Ten game. It's the opener. They lose it. The season is. So I'm going to say true there. No one's going to go with Temple. So I can cross that one off the list. Although Temple trap game.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why it took me a little while to answer that. Yeah. I saw the way Warner played at the end of last year. That's
true.
He was a stud.
Man.
And he played well against Rutgers too in his debut.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Oh boy. All right. So what do we have to go above? What did you say? You said false. Dylan Harper's coming over. Is that what you did?
Listen, you guys are the insiders on Dylan Harper. So I want the fans to know that point blank.
Right.
But I wanted to talk about it because it just still blows my mind that Rutgers could be in the mix for one or now 2 and 3. And
yeah, it is.
I know everything is trending positively for Rutgers, but I like you said with the signing day question, there's always a doubt in the back of my mind. So that's it.
I am at the point, Brian, and tell me if I'm wrong. I'm at the point where I'm like, all right, well, let's get on with it, and I get it. He's on his own timetable. It's August. The team was in Europe and Africa, so you didn't want to do it then. I mean, I don't know. This seems like the next couple of weeks, it seems like it'd be a good time to get that done.
I would agree, if only for my own personal health, so that I don't have jump out of my seat every time my phone rings and I have a notification, thinking that that's the day. It seems like he's not wanting to announce a day for his announcement. Usually recruits let you know when it's coming.
Yeah.
I think he's kind of enjoying this kind of will he, won't he kind of thing. He's teased that a commitment's coming soon, and he's joked around about what days he's going to do. And he's got everyone kind of wondering, right? So maybe he's, I would be surprised if he just did it out of the blue, out of nowhere. It seems like, I think that partially he didn't want to do it while Rutgers was overseas, right? It feels like it'd be weird timing to do that. I would think that the best thing to do, and this is just me saying this personally, I think the best thing to do would have, a press conference at Don Bosco or make an event out of it, because it's a big deal, especially if he is committing to Rutgers, right? I think make it what it is, an event, a big deal. Right. I don't know if that's what he's going to do, but I think, well, it's natural for people to start getting nervous because, you've been told that's going to happen soon and it's not happening soon. I think, I don't think there's really any reason to worry. I just think that he's taking his own time with the process and maybe messing around with people who were throwing out crystal balls and everything. So I don't think there's any reason to worry just yet.
If there was a reason to get nervous, we'd be hearing, oh, Rutgers should get nervous. Like there'd be that back chatter, that grassroots. I mean, basketball is the gossipiest little place in the world. I mean, there'd be people talking about, oh, I don't know, I'm not so sure, and I'm not hearing that. So that's the best I can tell you. That element is not out there, at least not yet. So I wouldn't worry about that one.
He hasn't taken any or scheduled any other visits, as far as I know, or anything like that. So no, there's been no developments other than him just not not giving us any updates.
Obviously, a completely different scenario. But how did Ron Harper commit?
He took a visit on a Friday, I think, and that Monday, the story goes that he went on a visit with his mom. He wanted to commit that day. And his mother, who is very sharp and is very smart about the recruiting process, told him to take a day, take 2 days. And he thought about it over the weekend. And by Monday, I think it was, he committed to Rutgers. So in fairness, he did not have as many options as Dylan has now. So it's a little bit different.
And the world was like, why are they taking some 2-star from 6 out? So
that is true.
That in mind. Like that is one of the 10 best players in program history. It was like, oh, taking that kid. So always good to remember that. Wow, they've come a long way in recruiting, though. It's crazy stuff. All right. Do we have to talk about anything else? I think we covered the breakout player. Who did you say the breakout player was going to be, Pat?
Shaquan Loyal he did have that huge game against Temple last year. So but I think just because he's stepping up into Izian's role from last year, that's why he's going to be a very impactful player.
It's funny, just every time they come back to this a lot with the defense. Like every time you mention another guy, like, oh, well, you know what? Yeah, wow, he was pretty good. Like, there's just a bunch of guys like that. And we didn't even talk about the defensive line. Right. And we didn't talk about
Wesley and that's Bailey.
Right. When in the history, when was the last time? This is a good point. When you want to get up, when you're going to your tailgate in 10 days, you want to get excited about Rutgers. When was the last time you could say the defensive line is a strength of the team? Hey, Rutgers Rant listeners, it's Steve Politi from NJ Advanced Media. We appreciate you supporting this podcast and the sponsors who help us continue doing it. This week's podcast is brought to you by the New Brunswick Development Corporation. If you listen to this show, you love Rutgers. And if you love Rutgers, you know the positive impact that DevCo has made on the campus and its community. We thank the New Brunswick Development Corporation for its continued support and for helping make this podcast possible. Now back to the show. It's been a while. So, All right. Good job on true or false, guys. You guys are in mid-season form. I don't care what they say about you.
Those were great questions too. So
I tried. Yeah.
Kudos to you, Steve.
I'm bringing it. All right. Let's do some questions from the readers, from the insiders. I'm not going to ask you. We're just going to do them. I've learned that I'm going to change the script here. Thank you, everyone, to subscribing to our text service. It's really ramping up. So if you're not on there, get on there before the season, because that's where the good stuff happens. All right, we've got a couple of questions about the offensive line. How's the offensive line performed on pass protection and with one run blocking? I think work in progress again.
I think it's fair to say.
Yeah. I don't know. My assessment is it's been better.
Yeah.
I'm feeling a little bit better about the offensive line because you got the 3 starters back, and I think the competition on the right side has been good for them. And what I saw on Saturday, I charted only 2 sacks, and that was pretty good in my opinion. So
well, for a 7-hour scrimmage, that's damn good.
Okay, first of all, it was only 4. It was a real game time scrimmage. All right. Well, it was as long as a real game takes.
That's good. Well, that's an improvement. All right, let's see what other questions we've got. We get the same Wimsatt questions. Peter in Palm City, can Captain Kirk unlock Wimsatt's potential and give us the best quarterback play since Nova? Give me your sense. I know this is such a rare opportunity to talk to the offensive coordinator, Pat. I mean, what was the gist of that conversation? And can you give us any insights before you write about it? What you learned there?
Kind of what I talked about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I asked him what is the biggest piece that you're focusing on in development. Like, what's the one thing that like you really need to get Gavin to do better on? Is it and it's not as simple as just setting your feet and whatever, right? Like he could have said, we're working on this, the fundamentals. No, like his answer was very thought out, and I thought it really enlightening for the audience here. He said that all my quarterbacks, the successful ones, you get a new system, you have to work on establishing that system and then mastering that system. And it doesn't happen overnight. You got to do it on the practice field. You got to do it in the games. And I just think that the whole perception of Gavin's development here is that they have a system that's perfect for him, and that he's really working on making the right decisions. So like the understanding the RPOs and who to read and things like that is what's going to make the difference. I know that was a little rambling. I hope that made a little bit of sense.
No, it does totally. Yeah, and I think that's again, like, it's having the right guy in his headset and in his head. And if you agree that last year the offensive was too complicated for him, then yeah, that makes a big deal.
One thing on Gavin, I kind of want to take this advantage to bring up is I don't know. He's in his 3rd year, right? And I know he's a redshirt sophomore. He has a lot of eligibility left. But I'm interested in how the way that college football is moving will impact his future in this sense. 62% of starters in college football are expected to be transfers, meaning that the time that players have to establish themselves to go from developmental players into bona fide starters is really shortening. Does Gavin have to have a good year this year to prove that his viability long term, that he is the quarterback of the future for this program? Or is it like, if he has a rough year again, if he doesn't really take a noticeable step, is this a point where, he's going to have to go somewhere else, or Rutgers is going to have to go some other direction? I'm curious if you guys have any thoughts on.
I think we're at the degrees of how rough. I mean, if he has the same year as he had last year, then yeah, Rutgers needs a new quarterback. And I don't know if it's the Serace kid who's coming into that class who Todd raves about, or if it's back to again, you're counting on another young passer. If it's back to, we've talked about it, but trying to find someone in the portal. But yeah, I think if he's bad, then definitely. And if he just makes a modest step up, well, then I think you have to have competition in there. Yeah, you have to have competition in that room. Totally. And it's not, and at that point, you're no longer worried about, well, you're going to lose the guy in the portal. Now you're thinking the opposite. You have to find someone to supplement it. Pat, do you agree?
I agree. Yeah. And I think like Rutgers' plan is like, how can we develop Gavin into a veteran that in his senior year, he is, an above average quarterback in the Big Ten. Mm-hmm. That's the goal. And I think each step of the way, you're going to see his game develop a little bit more. And I'm being optimistic this year about Gavin. Like, even from what I've seen in the scrimmages, I think things are just set up for him to be successful, and the offense is going to be run first, and he can use his legs. And if the receivers step up, he's going to have a decent season. My biggest fear is not the quarterback play. It's the receivers. And that was why the first question I asked in training camp was like, how are you evaluating this wide receiver room and who's going to be the guy? Because it's such a question mark. And I still think at the end of training camp, it's just as big a question mark.
Wow. That's concerning. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Since that was one they had to address in the offseason and they thought they did. So if they haven't, then that could be a big one.
Just to clarify, I only asked that question not as a result of what I've seen or anything like that. It's just my general feeling entering the season. Before people start reading into what we're saying on the podcast, I don't want to be held liable for people suddenly thinking that this is his last year, just to be clear.
This is like the first session that we got a question was, is Gavin happy? Is he going to, we didn't get that question.
We didn't get that question anymore.
Fonseca brings it up.
It's great. Come on. Kidding. All right. Question about running backs. What is the status of the running back? Crowded running back room from Brian K, who will be the top 3. I mean, I think in an ideal world, if everyone is ready to go, that they would love to have lots of depth there, use a lot of players there, I would think. I mean, what are we looking for in the running back room?
Like you said, ideal world. I think Sam Brown is the guy. Obviously, he showed he's the best player in that room and probably on the offense last year before he got hurt. I would have to think that you wouldn't want to make him a workhorse that does 25 carries a game just because you don't want to have him, suffer another injury, another setback. But I think they have plenty of good depth behind him in Kyle Monangai and Aaron Young. I think Aaron Young was a guy who got some praise from Shiano and his presser, right, for how he did in the scrimmage. So and then you have Alshie Salam and, freshman Jayshon Benjamin, who was highly ranked. Yeah. So a lot of depth in that room. Right?
They've got a lot of players there. Yeah. And Aaron Young, I mean, man, he had that was a guy that could have used last year, Pat. You forget about that. That was a pretty significant blow.
Yeah, and what Shiano said, I thought was important too, is that he's going to be used as a third down back, right, which was pretty revealing for Shiano. But he's got the pass catching ability and he's durable. On Saturday, he had about 1 billion carries in the scrimmage. So hopefully, it seems that he's back from that injury, whatever it was.
All right, we just had a bunch of questions, so I'm just kind of going through them to see what else. All right. The general question, and this is one that always comes up usually when they're in a position to start talking about how many win total, but if Rutgers football has a 4-win season this year, how many wins does Shiano have to have in 2024 not to be on the hot seat? Love these general questions. Optimism abounding. 4 wins would be, I think, certainly anything below that would be an absolute disaster this year. For kind of like minimum, I see that this being, that would be a bad year, but not a total bloody disaster. Or would it? What do you guys think?
Have you seen the 2024 schedule? I know it's being changed, but that schedule is like absolutely brutal.
They're going to change Maryland to Washington. Yeah. That's how they're going to change it.
So it's going to be Maryland to Oregon.
I don't know. Right? They're going to take off. Who do they have in there? Going to take off Illinois. I don't even know if they have it.
In all seriousness, I think this is a team that's gonna be right on the cusp of 6-6 this year. I really do.
Yeah, I think if it's a 4-win season, I don't think there's a hot seat in the traditional sense of Greg Schiano being on the hot seat. It's just not. It's just not the same as another head coach. It's just going to be different. The best way I can explain it, I mean, I talked to him today. I have a column next week about him, but I just don't know that that's going to be a conversation after this year. I just don't. I mean, it's not the typical 4th year, right? Like Chris Ash's 4th year was like, all right, dude, we have no idea if you can be a football coach at this level. You got to show us something. And he was gone. He was gone by before September was over. I mean, it was such a disaster. You're like, all right, well, that's not going to happen with Greg Schiano. They know he can build this program. They've seen that happen before. It's the reason why they were so desperate to get him back. So I'm not sure if it's a 4-win season, it's going to be a very interesting conversation, but I don't know what hot seat is a different term. I'm not sure that he would be on the hot seat. It's interesting, man. Wow. That's kind of, yeah.
I agree with you. I don't think he'd be in danger of getting fired or anything, but I do think at some point fans are going to want something, right? Some tangible progress.
We're here. We're at that point, I think, right?
Right. That's why I agree. So if it doesn't come this year, if they only get 4 wins, I think people are going to want something, anything, a big home win, a ranked win on the road. They haven't had a ranked win in over a decade. The numbers for their home wins in the past 8 years or whatever are terrible in the Big Ten, right? Fans need something to cling on to hope, right? Or, I mean, the season ticket numbers have stagnated over the last 3 years. If they don't get something, they're in danger of that falling right below the however many diehard loyal Rutgers fans that show up to any game no matter what. But aside from those people, anyone above that is in danger of starting to say, why am I coming if I know they're going to lose every Saturday, right? So they got to show something, I think.
All right. One last hoops question for you, Brian. What is the status of the 4 injured basketball players and their timeline? I know it's August 21st, so it's certainly not of much concern, but they expect Mawat Mag to be ready for the start of the season, right? He was the big one, but what else?
So, and I saw this question and they said I ignored it over the weekend. I apologize. I lost it in the shuffle.
You did. You ignored it.
We will be much better about answering questions on NJ.com/text moving forward. I promise. So no one has any definitive answer on Mawat Mag. They are hopeful he is ready for the season opener. I hear he's very far ahead in his rehab, further than people had expected when it originally happened, but they will not know for sure. Those 4 guys that he mentioned did not play on the overseas trip, right? So Mawat Mag, hopeful for the first game. They're not entirely sure. And frankly, I'm not very certain they would play him as a starter anyway, because I don't know if you want to risk, a guy who just had an ACL right away. I don't know if it's very smart. Emmanuel Ogbole, Michael told Jerry Carino of the Asbury Park Press that he tore his ACL. That was the knee injury he had. That the program mentioned when he signed. He tore his ACL in March, I believe. So I think he's unlikely to play and be ready by the season opener. That timeline, he's probably going to be ready, December, January at best. So that's what I would say on Ogbole. Don't expect him early on in the season. Jeremiah Williams, he's been on the court. He has, done drills by himself. It worked out. I don't know if he'll be ready for the start of the season. And it doesn't matter because I don't think he's going to get his waiver as a 2-time undergraduate transfer anyway. And Austin Williams, I'm not entirely sure. He had a knee injury that made him miss the entire last year. So that timeline sets up for him to be able to start playing by the season opener. He did not participate in the overseas trip. I don't know if that's because he just joined the program literally a day before they left and he hadn't have time to acclimate or what, but I would expect him to not miss much time, if any. I expect him to be, but then this is not, I don't know this for a fact, but just based on what I know about when the injury happened and what it was, I would expect him to be back at the start of the season.
All right. Good job, guys. Good job with the questions. Thanks everyone for asking. And if we missed anything, just text us back and I apologize. All right. What else we got? Oh, what else? We got I saw a weird score. The Rutgers women lost to Hofstra.
Yep. Hofstra is the bane of the Rutgers existence, apparently,
Really?
over the past year. I
Happened
mean,
before
men's basketball, NIT.
Oh, Hofstra. I forgot about that. Hofstra.
Yeah.
That's right. Yes. Hofstra.
You were the guy that called it. I don't know how you forget about that.
That's
You
a good point.
predicted it a week
I
before it happened.
I tried to put most of that end of that basketball season out of my head, but yes, that's a good point. Hofstra, man. So what happened? You were there.
I was there.
Just the fluky soccer thing.
So I attended Rutgers Fan Fest before it, just to hang around and check things out. And there was, I guess I'll talk about that for a bit. It was very well attended. The boardwalk was out and people wanted to go there and check it out with their kids. Nice way to spend a Sunday afternoon. Lots of autographs, long line for Gavin Wimsatt, as could be expected. Long line for Max Melton, who was probably the most enthusiastic guy to sign autographs. Sam Brown was popular, Aaron Lewis. Oh yeah, Max Melton was loving it. I mean, but they had to get off. I believe at 6:45 is when coaches started telling guys that they had to go back in, and there's practically 2 guys having to drag Max Melton out because he has a line still, and he's just signing every autograph, taking every picture.
That's
I think
cool.
if they let him, it was great. I think if they let him, he'd still be out there signing autographs. So as I told a couple guys trying to get him out, I said it's probably better than the alternative of having to drag them out here, having to drag them back inside is a good problem to have. So Max Melton was a popular guy, and he gave the love back to the fans. So I figured while I was there, I'd step over to the Rutgers women's soccer game. Good crowd of people who stuck around after the Fan Fest. The soccer was not as great, kind of really a cagey 0-0 game. And then with 3 minutes left, Hofstra scores a banger from the middle of their half, just kind of loops it over the Rutgers goalkeeper, and they lose to Hofstra. So season's over. I think that's fair to say. I think they can wrap it up and cancel the rest of the year. And Final Four hopes are dashed. I made that joke in the press box, and everyone's classic NJ.com, classic season's over column, even for women's soccer. So
That's great.
At least we are equal opportunity.
Yes.
What's the word? Pessimists here.
Which fall sport, to cross women's soccer off now that you've already ended that season, which fall sport is the one that, other than football, that fans should be watching? Like this team could be, is it men's soccer? Is it?
I really like men's soccer. I think they have a chance to build on their Big Ten tournament winning year. Jim McElderry. That's his name, not McElderry, as I've said many times. Jim McElderry. I apologize, Jim, if you're listening to this. I hear I've been getting a lot of guff in the athletic department for constantly saying his name wrong. McElderry. I want a pat on the back for saying this correctly. And I think he has a great team coming back. I think he's added a lot, through the portal and high school recruiting this year. I think they have a chance to, much like last year, compete for the Big Ten regular season title. So that's the team I would point to. And obviously field hockey, Meredith Civico's teams are always competitive. So that should be another team to keep an eye on.
All right, Lanny, what do you got? What are you bringing here, Dan? What are you bringing at the end? Anything?
Let's see.
You skipped Fan Day? You can't even.
Yeah. No, Juliet, my daughter, she's still a little too young for Fan Fest to get her face painted and stuff.
That's
so
good. Okay. Fair enough.
I was gonna say the team to watch this fall is the football team, Steve.
Look at you.
Come on.
Stop sucking up. They've stopped listening at this point. If there's someone in the staff still monitoring what you're saying. When I say what else is when those guys turn it off. Come on.
Listen, no, I'm optimistic, especially after my chat with Captain Kirk today. Like, we see eye to eye. Me and Shiraka, we're just two football guys going back and forth.
Couple paisans.
We just it all. If you could just see the vision, my vision for this football team with Captain Kirk, you would understand that they're getting to 6-6, and the offense is going to be finally better. Let's see.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, next week, I'll get a little teaser. Next week in the podcast, we will make our season predictions, and then I don't know if you guys noticed this. I put a fan poll out there asking if people would listen to a second podcast each week during the season where we do predictions and recap the week, and 83% of people said yes. Of the 14 people, so 12 of the 14 people who voted in the poll said that's a great idea. So we're gonna do that starting during the season. So a lot to look forward to with the Rutgers Rant.
I love it,
including me going into a studio on Friday to record a new ad for the Helix, which is the Devco project, which will be the sponsor. I will explain what the Helix is in the next podcast. So lots to look forward to.
They better give you a helmet like they gave Aaron Lewis. I need that photo shoot.
You want me
live as soon as it happens. Yes.
In the studio? I mean, it's like a padded room with a microphone. I need a helmet for that.
Well, okay. I guess they can bring it from the Helix.
Devco.
Come on, man. Devco helmet. That's fair. All right, gents. Good job this week. Really enjoyed it. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll be back next week to talk some more football. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Rutgers Rant. To participate in the conversation and receive live updates about the Scarlet Knights directly to your phone, sign up at NJ.com/insider.
You haven't heard enough from me yet, huh? Steve Politi here for one last thank you to this episode's sponsor, New Brunswick Development Corporation, and to listeners like you who make it all the way to the end of the show. We'll see you again soon.